Imagine standing in a forest so ancient that the trees around you were already old when the first dinosaurs took their first steps. The air smells of something you cannot quite name: soil, moisture, and time. You reach out and touch the bark of a tree that was alive before the continents settled into the shapes we know today. Now imagine that same tree is still alive, right now, somewhere on Earth. 5 mass extinction events have swept across this planet. Asteroids have fallen from the sky. Ice has buried entire continents. Oceans have risen and fallen like the breath of some enormous sleeping creature. 99% of every species that has ever lived is gone, erased, as though they never existed. And yet, tucked into the hidden corners of our world, a small group of plants simply refused to obey that rule. Scientists call them living fossils, but that name does not begin to capture what they truly are. These are not relics. They are survivors. They are champions of endurance so extraordinary that looking at them feels less like a nature walk and more like a conversation with deep time itself. Today, we are going to meet them, and by the end, one of them will almost certainly leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about what it means to be alive. Before we go any further into this ancient world, if you find yourself as captivated by these botanical survivors as we are, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that notification bell. It is the best way to make sure you never miss a story like this one. Now, let us go back in time. The story of life on Earth is often told as a story of endings, of creatures that could not adapt, that could not survive. But there is another story, quieter, stranger, and far more astonishing. It is the story of the plants that held on, the ones that watched entire worlds rise and crumble, and simply kept growing. Today, we are tracing that story across 10 extraordinary plants, from the bottom of the ocean to the peaks of mountains that were once beneath the sea, from forests in China to islands in the Indian Ocean. What you are about to discover is not just biology. It is a testament to the sheer, stubborn, almost defiant power of life itself. When biologists talk about living fossils, they mean organisms whose physical form has remained largely unchanged for millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of years. For plants, this is particularly striking. Plants are sensitive to climate, to soil chemistry, to the presence or absence of their pollinators. They should not survive world-altering catastrophes, and yet some of them have. Studying these plants gives scientists a living window into ancient ecosystems. They tell us what the world once looked like, how ancient climates behaved, and how life finds a way. Sometimes against odds so steep that survival itself seems miraculous. So let us take a look at the most astonishing examples. 1. The tree that outlived the dinosaurs. Wollemia nobilis. Wollemi pine. Blue Mountains, New South Wales, Australia. In 1994, a park ranger named David Noble was on a routine bushwalk through a remote canyon in the Blue Mountains of New South Wales, Australia. He rappelled down into a narrow gorge, a place so steep and isolated that barely anyone had ever entered it. And there, in the shadows, he found something that stopped him cold. Trees. Tall, strange-looking trees with waxy, dark green fronds, unlike anything he had ever seen. He collected a sample. When it reached the botanists, the room went very quiet. The Wollemia nobilis, now known as the Wollemi pine, was a species known only from fossils. Fossils that were over 200 million years old. The Wollemi pine was believed to have vanished at the end of the Cretaceous period, along with the dinosaurs. And there it was, alive. In a canyon in Australia, there were fewer than 100 mature trees. They had been hiding in that secret gorge, shielded by cliff walls on all sides, for longer than the human mind can fully comprehend. Today, a small population survives in the wild, and its exact location is kept secret to protect it from disease and human interference. The Wollemi pine is not just a botanical miracle. It is a ghost species that turned out to still be haunting the earth. 2. The fern that has not changed in 360 million years, Osmunda claytoniana. Interrupted fern, North America and Asia. Long before a single flower had ever bloomed on Earth, before any bird had ever sung, before any bee had ever buzzed through sunlight, there were ferns. And among them, one genus has shown a kind of cellular loyalty to its original design that is almost unnerving. Osmunda claytoniana, the interrupted fern, belongs to a family of plants so ancient that near-perfect fossilized specimens have been found dating back 360 million years. When researchers at Lund University in Sweden examined those fossil specimens in 2014, they were stunned, not just at the age, but at the detail. The internal cellular structure of the ancient fossils was virtually indistinguishable from that of modern interrupted ferns growing in forests across North America and Asia today. 360 million years, 4 mass extinctions, the rise and fall of entire geological eons, and the interrupted fern remained architecturally, essentially, the same. Even its mitochondria, the energy-producing structures inside its cells, appear structurally preserved. Scientists described it as the most extreme example of evolutionary standstill ever recorded in the fossil record. 3. The living island of a plant Dracæna cinnabari, dragon blood tree, Socotra Island, Yemen. Out in the warm waters of the Indian Ocean, on the island of Socotra, grows a tree so bizarre in appearance that early Arabian sailors called it the dragon blood tree. And even now, standing beneath one in a rocky landscape that feels more like another planet than our own, the name feels exactly right. Dracæna cinnabari grows on the island of Socotra off the coast of Yemen, and it has been there for at least 20 million years. Its canopy spreads outward in an almost perfect upturned umbrella shape. Dense and dark green above, stark and branchless below. This shape evolved for one specific reason: to collect fog and funnel every drop of moisture down to its roots in one of the driest environments imaginable. When its bark is cut, it bleeds a startlingly vivid red resin, the famous dragon blood, which has been used in medicine, dye, and ritual for thousands of years. What makes this tree a living fossil is not just its age, but its isolation. Socotra separated from the Arabian Peninsula roughly 20 million years ago, and Dracæna cinnabari has been evolving, or rather not evolving, in near total isolation ever since. It is now critically endangered, threatened by climate change, overgrazing, and cyclones of increasing ferocity. There may be fewer survivors of the last ice age left on Socotra than there are people who know this tree exists. 4. The seagrass, older than every civilization, Posidonia australis, ribbonweed, Shark Bay, Western Australia. In the shallow waters off the coast of Western Australia, just south of Shark Bay, there is a meadow. It is not a meadow you can walk through. You would need a snorkel or a boat, or the eyes of a scientist with an understanding of just how strange what they were looking at actually was. Posidonia australis, a species of seagrass, covers approximately 200 square kilometers of seafloor in this bay. And in 2022, researchers made a discovery so astonishing that they published it with barely suppressed amazement. The entire meadow is a single plant, one genetic individual, stretching across an area roughly the size of a small city, believed to be at least 4,500 years old, and possibly as many as 200,000 years old. A single organism, quietly photosynthesizing, long before the Egyptian pyramids were built. This seagrass reproduces almost exclusively by cloning itself, slowly, patiently spreading rhizome by rhizome across the ocean floor. It has survived sea level changes, salinity shifts, and temperature extremes that should, by all logic, have killed it. Instead, it persisted. It is potentially the oldest living organism on Earth, not just the oldest living plant, and it does not look like much from above. Just water. A shimmer. The surface of an ocean holding an ancient secret just beneath. 5. The time capsule in the mountains of China. Metasequoia glyptostroboides, Dawn Redwood, Hubei Province, China. In 1941, a Japanese paleobotanist named Shigeru Miki published a description of fossil leaves found in Miocene deposits, fossils roughly 5 to 20 million years old. He named the genus Metasequoia, the Dawn Redwood, and assumed the world was looking at another extinct species, another page from Earth's ancient catalog of the lost. He was wrong. Just a year later, in 1944, a Chinese forester discovered living trees in a remote valley in Hubei Province, China. The trees were enormous, soaring, straight-trunked, their feathery, delicate leaves utterly unlike anything in the region's modern flora. When the discovery reached the scientific community, the shock was immediate and profound. The Dawn Redwood had survived in a single hidden valley, protected by geography, for millions of years after it was believed to have vanished from the fossil record. Seeds and cuttings were distributed worldwide. Today, Dawn redwoods grow in botanical gardens on every continent, but their native population in those few valleys of China remains small, vulnerable, and irreplaceable. A tree that once blanketed the northern hemisphere, a tree beneath whose canopy Eocene mammals once sheltered, now survives in the wild only because of a remote valley, a curious forester, and very good timing. 6. The plant that breathes like a fish. Selaginella lepidophylla, resurrection plant. Southern Africa, Chihuahuan Desert. High in the coastal scrublands of southern Africa, in a zone of land so dry and nutrient-poor that most plants never gain a foothold, there survives a genus of plants so physiologically ancient that scientists study them to understand how the very first land plants dealt with desiccation. Selaginella lepidophylla, the resurrection plant, belongs to a group called lycophytes. Lycophytes first appeared approximately 400 million years ago, during the Devonian period, and once formed the dominant trees of the massive coal-forming forests that stretched across the Carboniferous world. The towering lepidodendron trees, 50 meters tall, their bark imprinted with diamond-shaped scars, were lycophytes. They are gone. But the lycophytes themselves are not. Modern selaginellas are small and ground-hugging, but they carry within them a superpower inherited from their ancient lineage. When drought comes, the resurrection plant curls into a tight brown ball and appears completely, entirely dead. All metabolic activity ceases, and then, when rain finally arrives, sometimes after years, it uncurls, turns green, and resumes life. The same cellular mechanism that allows it to do this is a direct inheritance from Devonian ancestors. This plant is not just surviving, it is using a 400-million-year-old trick to do it. 7. The palm that confused the scientists. Tahina spectabilis, Suicide palm, Maswala Peninsula, Madagascar. In 1995, a palm tree was discovered on the island of Maswala in Madagascar. That alone was not remarkable. Madagascar is one of the richest botanical regions on Earth, but this palm, Tahina spectabilis, the suicide palm, was spectacular in scale. Up to 18 meters tall, with leaves that could span 5 meters across. What made scientists stop cold was its evolutionary lineage. When the genome was analyzed, the nearest relatives of Tahina spectabilis turned out to be palms found not in Africa, not in Madagascar, but in South Asia and the Middle East. The closest living relative grows in Oman. How did an Omani palm's cousin end up alone on an island off the coast of Africa? The answer reaches back 60 to 100 million years, when Madagascar, India, and the Arabian Peninsula were still assembling themselves into their current positions. Tahina spectabilis is a botanical message in a bottle, sealed and sent when the continents themselves were still in motion. There are fewer than 100 mature individuals alive today, and the palm blooms only once, spectacularly, throwing out a cascading flower structure taller than a person. And then it dies. It gives everything it has in one final act, leaving behind only the seeds and the story. 8. The ancestor of every flower on Earth. Ambarella trichopoda, Ambarella, New Caledonia. In tropical forests across northern Australia, Papua New Guinea, and some Pacific islands, there grows a modest, unassuming shrub with small, waxy flowers. Its name is Ambarella trichopoda, and its common name, if it has one, is barely known outside of botanical circles. But among scientists who study the origin of flowering plants, Ambarella is spoken of with something close to reverence. Every flowering plant on Earth, every rose, every apple tree, every sunflower, every grain of rice, belongs to the group called angiosperms. And Ambarella trichopoda sits at the very base of the angiosperm family tree. It is the sister lineage to every other flowering plant alive. It diverged from the common ancestor of all flowers approximately 130 million years ago, in the early Cretaceous, and it has not changed significantly since. Studying Ambarella is like reading the very first page of the story of flowers. Its reproductive structures are primitive and unlike any other modern angiosperm, offering a window into what the first flowers may have looked like when they appeared on Earth and began their slow, extraordinary conquest of the planet. It grows only on the island of New Caledonia, a fragment of the supercontinent Gondwana. And there, Ambarella has waited, on a drifting piece of ancient crust, holding the memory of the world's first flower within its cells. 9. The fern of the Coal Age, Dicksonia antarctica. Soft tree fern, New Zealand and Tasmania. Along the banks of certain rivers in New Zealand and Tasmania, in patches of ancient, undisturbed forest, there grows a fern that seems at first glance simply beautiful. Tall, elegant, almost tree-like, with spreading fronds of deep, luminous green. But look at it a little more carefully. Look at the structure of its fronds, the way they divide, the architecture of its reproductive spores, and then look at a fossil from the Triassic period, more than 200 million years ago. Dicksonia antarctica, the soft tree fern, belongs to a family called Dicksoniaceae, whose fossil record extends back 270 million years to the Permian period, just before the greatest mass extinction in Earth's history. The one that wiped out 90 to 96% of all marine species and perhaps 70% of all terrestrial vertebrates. The Permian-Triassic extinction. The one scientists call, without exaggeration, the Great Dying. Somehow, Dixonia survived it. Somehow, it crossed 270 million years of geological catastrophe. Ice ages, continental drift, the rise and fall of the dinosaurs, the rise and dominance of flowering plants, and the arrival of human beings. And it kept going. It grows slowly, adding perhaps a centimeter of height per year. A tree fern 10 meters tall may be 1,000 years old, and the lineage it belongs to is 270 times older than that. Stand near one, and you are standing near something that has endured everything. 10. The tree at the edge of time, Pinus longiva, Great Basin bristlecone pine, White Mountains, California, saved for last, because nothing else quite compares. In the White Mountains of California, above the tree line, in a place so inhospitable that almost nothing grows, where the soil is ancient dolomite, the air is thin, the winters are brutal, and the growing season lasts perhaps 6 weeks per year. There are trees, not forests, not groves, just scattered, ancient, twisted shapes clinging to rocky slopes that look like the surface of another world. They are Pinus longiva, the Great Basin bristlecone pine, and they are the oldest living organisms on Earth. The oldest known individual, a tree nicknamed Methuselah, whose precise location is deliberately kept secret, is more than 4,850 years old. But in 2012, another bristlecone in the same mountains was found to be over 5,000 years old. Older than the wheel. Older than written language. Older than every civilization that has ever risen and fallen on this planet. When that seed germinated in the thin mountain soil, the first pharaoh of Egypt had not yet been born. Bristlecone pines have evolved a survival strategy so extreme, it reads less like biology and more like philosophy. Because the growing season is so short, their wood grows extraordinarily slowly, so densely packed that it resists rot, insects, and fungal decay almost completely. A bristlecone can die and remain standing, essentially intact, for thousands of additional years after death. Its dead wood has given scientists a continuous tree ring record, stretching back nearly 9,000 years, allowing researchers to calibrate radiocarbon dating and reconstruct ancient climates with stunning precision. These trees do not thrive in the harshest conditions despite those conditions. They thrive because of them. Competition cannot reach them. Disease is slowed by the cold. The very brutality of their environment is their shield. In the most forbidding place, in the most extreme conditions, a tree found a way to become virtually immortal. When you stand beneath a bristlecone pine in the White Mountains at dusk, looking out across a landscape unchanged in millennia, there is a moment, strange and very quiet. The usual human sense of importance fades. Here is a living thing that has watched human civilization begin, flourish, and transform from the same rocky hillside without moving. It has refused every extinction. It has refused every ending. It is simply still here. What connects all of these plants? The secret pines of Australian canyons, the ancient ferns of coal-age forests, the seagrass meadow in Western Australia, the immortal bristlecone pines of California, is not just age. It is persistence. A quality so quiet and unassuming in plants that we almost always overlook it. In a world that celebrates speed, disruption, and constant change, these plants offer a different kind of lesson. Sometimes endurance is its own form of brilliance. Sometimes staying is braver than moving. And sometimes, tucked into a canyon no one has entered, or in a valley in China no one was looking in, or beneath the surface of an ocean no one was watching, Life simply keeps going. The next time you walk past a tree, pause for a moment. You may be passing a survivor of something you cannot imagine. You may be in the presence of something ancient enough to make all of human history feel like an afternoon. The earth is older than our stories about it, and the plants remember everything. If this journey through deep time has left you with the same quiet sense of wonder it left us with, we would love to know which of these plants moved you most. Leave your answer in the comments below. Every story you share helps this community grow. If you have not already, please subscribe and ring that notification bell. Our next video explores another world hiding in plain sight, and you will not want to miss it. And if you are ready to keep going right now, we have left another video waiting for you. See you there.